I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're diving into a powerful book, a book you're going to want to read. It is called Anxiety Sucks: 10 Ways Human Beings Make Themselves Miserable. It's written by a terrific author, a wonderful psychologist. His name is Dr. Moss Jackson. This insightful book uncovers 10 self-defeating behaviors that fuel anxiety and unhappiness and offers real-life solutions for breaking free from these mental traps. With decades of experience helping people overcome trauma and limiting beliefs, the doctor provides powerful tools for leading a more fulfilled and anxiety-free life. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Doctor, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you so much, Logan. It's good to see you.
Great to have you on the show. It seems like so many people today suffer from anxiety. Is it that we're more aware of it? Is it our digital age? Is it our busy modern society? But why do you think it seems that it affects people more now than ever before?
It's a great question. It's a mystery to a lot of people. Like, what is anxiety? Where does it come from? Did I do something wrong? Did somebody do something to me? I don't deserve this. I do deserve it. It's just a swirl of conversations that don't go anyplace. I think in every generation, there's a conversation around this is the worst generation to grow up in. So we've always had anxiety. Anxiety, if you're a mammal, particularly a mammal called human being, you have anxiety. You will never, ever get rid of it. No matter how good you are, no matter how many good deeds you do, God will not take it away from you. It's like you have anxiety. We could talk about why that is so in a minute, but I think we're living in the best and worst of times, as was said in The Tale of Two Cities. I think in part we have lots of opportunities and we take on challenges. More people have an opportunity to be entrepreneurs. The pandemic has actually allowed more people to get out of the workforce in terms of corporations and start their own companies. But when you're alone out there, because we're social mammals, we need connection with other people. If you don't have connection, anxiety shows up and maybe even misery. But I think, there are a couple reasons why we're more anxious. Number one, we're living in the 21st century. But I'm going to say something which may sound startling to some of your viewers. We're living in the 21st century, but we have a brain that's 100,000 years old. The brain is not equipped for the technology of the 21st century. It's like you have a bicycle and you want to get to a destination, but life is passing you by like in a cellar. So life is speeding by. We don't have enough time, most of us, to absorb all the information. And we're stuck with four sources of anxiety, Logan. And I think I got this from an author called Mogadad, who wrote a book on happiness fulfilling. But I think one is uncertainty. We just don't know what's happening. Look at what's happened in the last 4 years leading up to this election. All this uncertainty. And the uncertainty now that Trump is president-elect. There's as much anxiety today on Friday as there was on Monday prior to the election. Number two, you have lack of information. If you lack information, you just can't figure out what's going on. Three, you have conflict. And four, you have loss of control. So if any one of those factors, I'm uncertain, I don't know what's going on, I lack information, I don't have good control or self-agency, and I'm in conflict with the world, with the political party, my neighbor, my spouse, anxiety will show up. So who the hell knows that? We're not taught this growing up,
right?
But we're hit hard at a certain age. Well, any age, it could be when you're 4, 5, 8, 9, 12, 15, 30, 60. How many times have you talked to people who look forward to retirement? They retire and then they die in a goddamn year,
They retire and they hate it.
And they hate it.
Yeah, because there's no purpose or no, action anymore. There's no social interaction, as you mentioned.
Right.
And I think that's at the root of it is social interaction. A lot of it has to do with outlook, don't you think? A lot of people fill themselves with worries and fears and anxieties because they view the world as a dangerous place. And I think you were
Yeah.
alluding to this a little bit before about fight and flight.
Yeah.
Other people have a much more positive
Yeah.
viewpoint that things are going to work out for the best.
It's so
And
interesting you say that. I was preparing for this talk. I came downstairs after seeing a patient and walked into the kitchen. And my wife's there with our younger daughter, who's about 45, 46. She stopped over for breakfast and for a chat. And she was talking to my wife. My wife's also a psychologist, by the way. I have one daughter, a psychologist. I'm a psychologist. My wife's a psychologist. This particular daughter designs jewelry. Okay. And she's having a conversation with my wife about the law of manifestation. My younger daughter's become a manifester. That's a fascinating, what you think is what you get.
yeah,
Fascinating. Anyway, she says to my wife, look, Mom, you are a ruminator. You obsess with negativity and you forget the brain, as Dad has told you, us, is negatively wired. It's been wired that way ever since we became Homo sapiens. We weren't the biggest, weren't the fastest, but we grew together as tribes and we used our emotional intelligence to learn how to do things, make weapons or build shelters, build fortresses. So that she said to my wife, I think your problem is you watch too much news. The news is not designed to make us happy. The news is designed to make us addicted. And a great way, the biggest addiction, as I understand it, is anxiety. And we
some
look for,
people actually like getting caught up in that emotional turmoil. They
yeah.
like being in that do or die situation. And sometimes I understand that adrenaline rush. You know what I
Yes.
mean? As a
Well, you
newsman,
well,
being
you
at the big
probably have had it.
story,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
I
a
mean,
rush, but it can be self-defeating, as you say,
yeah.
too.
I'm not sure how you experience doing the shows you do because you do a lot. You have to create a connection with a person. You don't have much time to form a relationship, but you have to figure it out very quickly, and then you're responsible for a half hour or so of facilitating a dialogue.
Right.
But if you don't have a sense that the physiology of excitement and anxiety are exactly the same. They're exactly the same. You get the adrenaline, you get the neurotransmitter that says, get those muscles, slow down your digestion,
Right.
get those physical arms and legs ready for battle.
Yeah.
Now, when you're in a situation where you have a tennis match, or remember when Johnny Connors and John McEnroe used to play? They were the best. And I love to watch John McEnroe trigger everybody in the stands. It juiced him up.
Yep.
So if you're playing a game, you want the game to have an element of surprise, uncertainty, and adventure. That's why people gamble. We don't know what's
Right.
going to happen.
Yep.
But if you're anxious, that same chemical reactions that you have when you're excited do damage, because now we interpret it as danger. As soon as you put the label, I'm in danger, I'm in trouble, now you are gripped by the black hole of anxiety. And unless you can identify it and say, I think I'm feeling anxious. Why am I feeling anxious? I don't see any lions, tigers, or bears. What's going on here? A few years ago, my wife and I went to South Africa on a safari. If I may tell you a little story. And we're walking down a narrow path. It's only about 2 feet wide. She's walking in front of me. I like walking next to my wife. I like holding her hand. So I started to walk on the grass next to her. And the guide walked up to us and said, sir, you seem very in love with your wife. How long have you been married, may I ask? I said, well, yes, you may ask. I've been married 60 years. He says, that's a fine time to be married. Would you like to continue being married to her? I said, I would very much so. Are you suggesting you're going to compete with me for my wife? He said, no, not at all. It's your wife, not mine. However, you're now walking on the grasslands in which there are black mamba, one of the most poisonous snakes in the world. And I suggest If you want to stay married, either get in front of her or in back of her. I
Oh,
got to tell you, Logan, I jumped 6 feet in the air
oh
and
yeah.
back, but I kept looking for where's the snake. So
Right.
the anxiety is an apprehension that something is going to happen to you.
Right.
Now, if I saw the snake, I'd be terrified with fear. I'd either have to run, flee, or freeze.
Right.
But anxiety, just to distinguish between excitement, excitement is a raw energy, power in playing a game. Your juices are flowing, and you're in a social activity. Number two, fear is something that's happening to you right now. You're being jumped in the alleyway. That black snake, or my mistake, is right in front of you. And anxiety is you're thinking about, am I going to get that promotion? Is the girl going to accept my date if I call her up? You know, when I gave Logan a call, he didn't return my call. He must be pissed off at me. He must be
Yeah.
really angry at me. And I worked myself up.
To a state. Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
mind is the worst terrifying terrorist in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Let's talk a little bit about the 10 self-defeating behaviors. We're going to
Okay.
save most for the book, but give me an example of one self-defeating behavior that fuels anxiety and unhappiness.
Okay. Good. So I love having written the book because I
Mhm.
usually write to help me understand something better. So
Mhm.
I've written about 9 books, and each book is directed at a topic that interests me. So the first book I wrote back in 2010 was a book called Navigating Success: Passion, Goals, Action, Resiliency, because I wanted to work with successful entrepreneurs and business owners. So I wanted to understand them. So I interviewed 50 people. Okay. With anxiety is so pervasive. 60% of doctors' visit have a stress related element to it. This past year, there's been an increase reported in the 67% of adults around anxiety. And there's been a 43% increase in anxiety compared to 2023 in teenagers. So it eats us up. Anxiety is not good for us.
Right.
So one way we make ourselves anxious. Oh, by the way, before I give you a couple of those examples, we have about 2,500 conscious thoughts a day, 2,500. The brain is actually working on about 80,000, but most of them are unconscious. But 2,500 is conscious. 80% of them are negative.
Wow.
80% of them have to do with what's going to happen. Am I going to get screwed? Why'd that guy cut me off? Why didn't Moss call me back? Why am I getting this bill? Like today, Logan, I was going through my bank account, and my bank account indicated on my charge card a $2,300 charge in Great Britain for children's clothes.
Wow.
I was watching my body. I was literally watching my
Shoulders go
body.
up.
Yeah, oh, my shoulder's going to go up as I'm
Yeah.
naked
Yeah.
against, and I stayed really calm because I've learned something in writing, which hopefully we can talk a little bit about later, because I have 11 breakthroughs to managing anxiety, 10 ways in which we make ourselves anxious. But I have
Mhm.
one guy I want to tell you about who was a ruminator. Let's call him David. And
Yeah.
David is going to a meeting in his company. He's one of about 5 regional directors. There were 100 leaders in this company. It's a national company. And as he's walking, he sees the president walking towards him. So he says to the president, "Hi," say his name is Bob. "Hey, Bob, how you doing?" And David is a very social kind of guy. The president, Bob, doesn't say a word. He just looks at his papers and continues walking. My client is devastated. He calls me up. He says, "Moss, I'm going to quit." "Why are you going to quit?" "Because I know what Bob is thinking. He's really, he's pissed. He's angry with me. And you know what he's going to do? He's going to crucify me in the meeting in front of 100 of my peers. And I will be so embarrassed, I'm going to have to go home and kill myself." I said to myself, this is really F up. This is really, I said, David, you're crazy. You're ruminating, and you're blowing it up into catastrophizing. So those are two ways in which we make ourselves miserable. We take an observation, then we make a movie out of it, a gothic movie, a horror movie.
Exactly.
And then we dwell on it, and then we jump to the false conclusion that I'm in real trouble, I'm going to get fired, and my life's going to turn to a disaster.
Yeah.
So two ways we can do it: ruminate and catastrophize.
We're almost out of time, but I need to ask you this.
Oh, wow.
Well, I know it goes quick. When you're having fun, it goes fast. But
Like
let
a
me
good
ask you this.
relationship, yeah.
One of the tools I tell people when they're ruminating or they have a lot of anxiety is I tell them to switch the channel.
That's a
Just
good
like
one.
watching TV.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
force your mind to focus on something positive because all the worries, fears, anxieties, and doubts are generally rooted in nothing but worries,
Yeah.
fears, anxieties, and doubts. Good strategy. What's a strategy you would suggest for people who are suffering from anxiety?
Well, that's a very good tactical strategy, because you drop out of anxiety and you're watching something or doing something more pleasurable.
Right.
Now, there are other ways. I like the notion of attack the fire, attack the dog. So anxiety, when you move away from it and avoid it, the anxiety says we're winning.
So I'll be back later.
I'm going to get him because he backed away. He's a chicken. See, but if you say, okay, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stand here and just watch. Like when I go to the beach, I watch people. When I go to the park, I sit on a park bench and I watch people, and that's fascinating. Have you ever thought of, maybe you have, watching your mind? Oh, I'm noticing I'm feeling anxious. Let's say I'm feeling anxious about coming on the show. Right. I'm noticing I'm going to start the show with Logan in 20 minutes. Oh, I'm feeling some tension in my stomach. So one action is stop, look, and listen. Stop, look at what's going on. Maybe label it. Oh, I think I'm obsessing a bit. Doing a should. Catastrophizing. I'm beginning to ruminate. Oh, I got 4 sources of anxiety that I read about in the book. Okay, great. Which one bothers me more? I think I'm ruminating a bit. Well, where does that come from? Well, I remember a time in 2nd grade when I gave a piano recital and 100 kids laughed at me. Oh, maybe I'm worried about going to the meeting and my boss humiliating me or looking foolish on the show. So you want to stop, look, and listen. Be aware of that you're feeling anxious. Label it. Give it a title. Perfectionism, comparing yourself to others, ruminating. A good one is holding on to past resentments. And then ask yourself, what level of upset will I give myself? 1 to 10. 10 is a red. It's a red light. You got to stop. 6, 7, 5, 6, 7 is you're heating up. Anything under 5 is manageable. Like right now, I'm about a 2. I'm engaged. You and I can easily go through 2 hours of conversation, fill up the time, no problem. So you could do this. You could stop, be aware, label it, give yourself a rating 1 to 10, locate it in your body. If you try to think yourself out of anxiety, you're going to be behind it's like wrestling an alligator. The anxiety is in a primitive part of your brain, and it doesn't care about logic, doesn't care about what a great guy you are or me. It just cares only about one thing: survival. It will do anything to get your attention riveted and even blow something out of proportion. But if you could say, oh, the alligator, I call my worry part of my brain Henry. Henry, hi, Henry. You worried about me now? Well, I don't want you to look foolish. I don't want you to screw up and look stupid. You've done that a lot of times in your life already. At this age, it's time for you to calm down. So, Henry, thank you for caring about me. However, no, thank you. I want to present, and I labeled you. I give you an anxiety score of 4. No big deal. I'm saying go out and play. I don't need you. And now I have a number of techniques that I write about in the book, which is not thinking techniques. They're bottom-up techniques. How can you move into your body, breathe, um, um, uh, talk to Henry. There's a wonderful technique. I just learned this recently called the thymus heart rub. Do we still have time to talk about this a little bit or not? Okay, so the thymus heart rub is if you put your hand on the middle of your chest, there's a thymus gland that has direct connection to your immune system. And if you rub it slowly, try it if not, put your hand on your chest and do a clockwise heart rub, do a nice deep breath. So as you do that, you might start to feel soothed. And if I say to you, let's take the 10 nice, slow, deep breaths. With each breath, you breathe in peace and love, and you breathe out stress and tension. And I put my voice in what's called a hypnotic trance voice. So I start to calm down the nervous system. I calm down the vagal nerve. So I'm working on the body, not going into, why are you thinking this? That's crazy thinking. Stop it. No, if it's there, we got to engage it, as I understand anxiety. And once you learn you can engage it and embrace it, you can quiet it down. And then, because once you're in a neutral zone, you're dropping your RPMs, and you're now in neutral, and you want to shift to another channel or another action. Okay, so that my book's about that.
Great advice. You've literally written the book and many other books as well. Dr. Jackson is a top clinical and organizational psychologist. He has worked with the best in the business, including coaches from the Super Bowl, talk about anxiety. The name of this book is Anxiety Sucks: 10 Ways Human Beings Make Themselves Miserable. This insightful book uncovers 10 self-defeating behaviors that fuel anxiety and unhappiness, and the book offers us real-life solutions for breaking free from these mental traps. Highly recommended. It's a very useful book. You'll recognize yourself within the pages, and perhaps you'll have the common sense to tell yourself to stop and deal with Henry in your head with some good self-talk.
Wonderful.
Anything you want to add before we leave, Doctor?
Yeah, we all deserve to be happy. We all deserve to be happy. Most of us don't know how to do it. We think if I get that job, if I get that degree, if I make 50,000, 100,000, 5, I'll be happy. It doesn't work that way. You want to develop, as you said before, a point of view about life. Like my daughter, younger daughter, is a manifester. She says, Dad, I believe in the power of your thoughts. Change your thoughts, change your brain, change your destiny. She's not the same person I knew 2 years ago.
Amazing.
She used to be a nervous wreck. But I think she now believes we deserve to be happy. You got to develop a strategy. My first book, Navigating for Success, is a conscious strategy on how to design a life worth having. And a lot of my readers and people I've coached have very successful lives. I wrote this book because I realized there was something missing in the first book. The power of the unconscious, the power of limiting beliefs, the power of believing your stories, letting your feelings dominate you. So I had to really leave the conscious mind and go to the back of the mind where the reptilian brain is. If we talk again, we'll talk about that. But that's where the terror lies.
Sounds great. Doctor, thank you so much for your insight and your wisdom today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Logan. I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed talking to you as well. Like you said, we could talk for hours nonstop, no problem. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time, this time, until next time on Spotlight.